Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Jimmy Dore Show. I'm here with Ron Placone.
Hey, Jimmy.
And there's teacher strikes happening all over the place. So we showed you what was happening in Kentucky. We covered that, right, last week. And West Virginia had a successful teacher strike. And Michael Moore, by the way, got almost a blip of coverage. Michael Moore talked about that. Bernie Sanders had his income inequality town hall. And Michael Moore brings up the success of the West Virginia teacher strike. Let's listen to it.
This is a union. This union brought down the state apparatus at 75% women in this union. And they rose up, and Bernie, I didn't see hardly anything in the corporate media about this on any of the networks. Even some of the networks that we watch were, Russia, turn the channel, Russia. And I'm not saying it's not important.
You forgot about Stormy Daniels.
Yeah, okay. Stormy Daniels and
Why? It's like they're talking about Rachel Maddow's set list. That's her show list right there. Russia, Stormy Daniels. Am I wrong?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for today and next week.
So isn't it awesome that Michael Moore will go on here and call out Rachel Maddow and Chris Hayes, but he won't go on Rachel Maddow and Chris Hayes and say that when he's on Rachel Maddow and Chris Hayes? That would be nice. I like Michael Moore, I think he does great work. I think he knows what's right, and he often expresses it. It would be nice to see him really stand up against neoliberalism and stop coddling people at MSNBC, the Washington Post, the New York Times, and really call them out. Because that's what has to happen. We have to have a real revolution, Michael, because playing Mr. Nice Guy, I'm still fun with the Democrats, which is what he does, doesn't work. Look where we are. Do you see how bad the country is? Do you see what's happening to Flint? Do you see half the country's poor? And so it's not working. This idea to be the good soldier for the Democrats is not working. So it'd be nice if he went on and said stuff. So he has, because he's great. Michael Moore's great, and he's an effective communicator, and he has the right ideas. And I just want him to share those right ideas in the right places. So here we go.
Junior, and whoever else, all the shiny keys to distract us. That's what goes on in the media. All the other things that they talk about. And we should be seeing this. This we should see. We should know about the West Virginia teacher strike and the victory. What inspiration that would be around the country if you saw people in West Virginia do this. They haven't had a strike like this in forever. And they don't show this, Bernie, because what would happen if they did? What would happen?
In a so-called conservative red state, teachers stood up and fought back and won.
Well, what would happen is you'd see more of this. Oklahoma teachers, women, are now the ones on the front lines in the war against neoliberalism. And there they are. You'd see a lot more of this. So here's a news report about what's happening with the teachers in Oklahoma.
In Oklahoma today, teachers normally at the head of the class are walking out of it.
What do we want? Money!
From West Virginia to Arizona to Kentucky, thousands of educators have protested low pay and inadequate school funding.
You live month to month for that paycheck.
Amber Spradlin teaches 6th grade English in a suburb of Oklahoma City. She's been a teacher for 13 years and makes about $34,000.
I don't know if you notice what she's doing. She's taping together books that are so old they're falling apart. Books.
They're science books, too.
That's
not even what she teaches.
This is neoliberalism.
Just a small raise every year.
Which is about an additional $100.
So wait, you get an extra $100 a year.
Yes.
That's your raise.
That's our raise.
Isn't that nice? Isn't that great? Here's one more news report about it.
Making their voices heard, hundreds of teachers crammed inside the Oklahoma State Capitol for a second day.
Are we here for us or our kids?
They're there for the kids. You're like, wait a minute. Though. First of all, those teachers, they're money grubbers. Am I right? They just want more money. No, what they're literally striking for is not, yes, they need to be brought up to a standard of living themselves, but they're striking for funding for the classroom, for books, for chairs, for desks, for supplies, for heat in the building. And they're striking so that other people who are supports that work in the cafeterias, janitors, stuff, they also get a living wage. That's what this is all about. It's not just for the teachers. They are now striking because they're defunding education. Oklahoma's at a 4-day school week because they don't have any money in the richest country in the world for school.
Walking off their jobs to press lawmakers for more money. The governor signed off on laws granting educators 15 to 18% higher salaries, but for some who haven't seen a pay raise in 10 years, they say that's not good enough. Oklahoma's 3 largest school districts remain closed Tuesday to honor the out. Husband and wife teachers Jay and Andrea Thomas say they work side jobs.
So this is a good report in a sense because it's going to highlight something that no one else is highlighting right now. This is the AP highlighting teachers who have to work second and third jobs just to pay their bills. But he missed the whole big part about what they're really striking for. Well, they offered him a 50% raise. The teacher said that wasn't enough. No, they said that wasn't enough because it doesn't fund the actual school buildings, the school supplies, and their support staff. And they left that out. So I'll put it in. Okay, Here we go.
Sometimes at the end of the month, we're like, oh gosh, we have nothing. And, you know, it's a way to provide for our family.
Jay doing whatever he can for extra cash.
My sign says I have to leave early so I can sell my plasma because, you know, got to have that extra funding.
He's not kidding.
Oh, I probably shouldn't turn here because...
Tulsa teacher Charlotte Clark does food delivery to shore up her finances.
Now I'm trying to get my mortgage paid for this month.
Teacher Jennifer Roop has 2 extra side jobs, the first cleaning her own school.
It's awesome, right?
Wow.
And no one in that state gives a shit about the education quality of their... they all get to vote. Everyone there gets to vote. But again, maybe we have the Sinclair media there. Maybe because of the Telecommunications Act, nobody gets out.
Mm-hmm.
So they're all told that these teachers are money grubbers.
Every day I vacuum as part of extra pay.
The second in retail.
I wasn't able to go to the Capitol because I have to work.
Wow. 3 total jobs to pay the bills. The governor has responded, saying the state's budget is tight and other programs need money too. But Oklahoma Democrats counter that there are bills pending in the State House that could generate an additional $100 million a year in school funding. The state's largest teachers union has not said when the demonstrations will end. John Mona said,
Why, isn't that something? The teacher has 3 jobs. Now, the problem is a lot of people in America think that's fantastic. Who would that be? The people who lead our country. Here's George Bush being confronted with that same situation.
That's good because I work 3 jobs and I feel like I contribute.
Here, you want to replay this because it's too low, right?
In that, you don't have to worry.
It's too low in the room.
In that, you don't have to worry.
That's good because I work 3 jobs and I feel like...
In that, you don't have to worry.
That's good because I work 3 jobs and I feel like I contribute.
You work 3 jobs.
3 jobs, yes.
Uniquely American, isn't it? I mean, that is fantastic that you're doing that.
That's fantastic.
American.
That's fantastic. That's how we feel in America. That's fantastic. You have to work 3 jobs just to keep a roof over your head? Isn't that fantastic that you're doing that?
Uniquely American. Uniquely what you can pull off when you demonize the idea of a minimum wage. Uniquely American.
Uniquely. Yeah. You know, when you shit on working people. Here's a picture of the books that they have in an Oklahoma class. Look at the books. Like, they're not embarrassed. People aren't embarrassed about this. Oklahoma legislators, the parents in Oklahoma aren't embarrassed about this. We're spending $80 billion a year extra on bombs. That was Sarah Jane Scarberry, a 9th grade teacher at Oklahoma's Heavener High School, shared this photo of English textbooks at her school. There's the English textbooks. That's what they look like. Here's another one. That's one of the reasons it's not over yet, meaning the Oklahoma strike. This is a textbook from my daughter's class. It's a history book, and the current president in it is George W. Bush. We can do better, Oklahoma. That's the book you hand your kid in the United States of America. Like, what kind of third world country are we in? Maybe we should get Lawrence O'Donnell to do a thing about getting books for kids in America, because he doesn't forget desks for kids in Africa. We need books for kids in America.
Class, turn to page 200. Excuse me, teacher, I don't have page 200 because my spine collapsed on this book years ago. It fell out at some point.
So, the governor of Oklahoma says this. Governor Mary Fallin signed a measure giving teachers a $6,100 pay raise and then compared their demand for more education funding to, quote, a teenage kid that wants a better car. Teachers want more, she told CBS News on Tuesday, referring to teachers rallying for higher teacher and support staff raises, as well as increased funding for education. So this isn't just about teacher pay. But it's like kind of having a teenage kid that wants a better car. And if that woman is able to get reelected, it shows you how broken our political system is.
I don't know. I see some merits to her analogy, though. I mean, I remember when I was a kid and I was in school, we always were talking about which one of us got to borrow the nicest history book from our parents. and then the big thing was, what history book are you going to take to your prom?
Yeah.
That was the big thing we had.
That was super big. So here's a little bit more background that you don't know about how horrible Oklahoma is. Oklahoma's teachers are rebelling against a decade of tax cuts that triggered deep cuts in education spending, forcing about 20% of public schools to switch to a 4-day week schedule and pushing average teacher salaries to the rank of 49th in the country. Teachers haven't gotten a raise in Oklahoma in 10 years. The education funding crisis in Oklahoma is so severe that the state is struggling to find and keep qualified teachers. In fact, about a quarter of Oklahoma City's teachers leave every year. And the state had to issue a record number of emergency teaching certificates, 1,917, for the current school year. A growing number of students in Oklahoma don't have properly certified teachers.
Wow.
This is neoliberalism. This is tax cuts create jobs. Tax cuts create a booming economy. Tax cuts are going to help you. That's what this is. Nearly 200 of the state's 550 school districts remain closed, according to a tally on the Oklahoma Teacher Walkout Facebook group. An estimated 30,000 teachers and educators had gathered at the Capitol on Monday, joined by hundreds of state employees. Oklahoma is still dealing with a budget crisis after lawmakers slashed business taxes and top income tax rates year after year. That's supposed to make your economy boom. It's supposed to fix all the problems. Tax cuts give people more money in their pocket, and they a round went into effect in 2009. A tax cut round went into effect in 2009. Then taxes were lowered further in 2012 and again in 2014. The tax cuts were supposed to lead to an economic boom, but instead they triggered a massive budget gap of about $1.5 billion each year. So if you're one of the people who watch this show who thinks tax cuts equal jobs, this is another piece of the evidence that disputes that. So if you think that and you're an actually open-minded thinking person, you're supposed to change your mind when the evidence changes. The evidence has changed. Tax cuts don't create... If tax cuts created better economies, and we would be living in the most booming... But we're not. But by the way, Wall Street's booming. But not for the people. Okay. Teachers are demanding that state legislators come up with $3.3 billion over the next 3 years for school funding, benefits, and pay raises for all public employees. On Monday, lawmakers didn't give an inch, and that made the teachers even angrier. So that's when they showed up, and they occupied the complete state house in Oklahoma, and the state legislators, instead of trying to pass a bill to help them, sent all their legislative aides home for safety because the teachers were there. You know how violent teachers are. The group asked for a $10,000 average pay raise for teachers over 3 years, $6,000 in the first year, and then $2,000 for each of the following 2 years. In 2016, a $6,000 average raise would have been enough to push Oklahoma from 49th to 28th in teacher pay. but they didn't get it. Okay? That didn't happen. They're still 49th. Oklahoma teachers are also asking for a $7,000 raise for school support staff. So it's not just them. Raises for all state employees and $200 million in school funding, a 5% cost of living pension adjustment for retired teachers, and more funding for their health care plans. So the teachers, you know, the ones who make everything possible in our society, they train the workers. They train the people, getting them ready to go be workers. The ones who are important, we're not taking care of them. And they're like, hey, you have to start paying us like we actually matter. You have to get us out of poverty. I shouldn't have to sell my plasma when I'm performing a really important job. But they would tell you a really important job is a Wall Street guy. That's really important. The teachers' demands add up to that money Oklahoma doesn't have on hand. The state would need to raise taxes. Many politicians in Oklahoma City resisted giving in to the teachers' list of demands, but felt the pressure to do something. In recent weeks, lawmakers have proposed a handful of bills. One would have raised teacher pay about $5,000, but it didn't include more funding for schools or anything else. That bill passed, but not the bill to raise cigarette and oil taxes to pay for it. The latest bill, which the governor signed into law last week, is the most generous yet, but the $447 million it would bring is still far too little. Teachers have rejected that proposal too. On Tuesday, teachers seem determined to stay out of class as long as it takes to get lawmakers to take action, but doing so will be harder for some teachers than others. While dozens of school districts, including Oklahoma City schools, have shut down indefinitely in support of the strike, others have not. Teachers who work at schools that remain open are using sick days or personal days to participate in the walkout, and others are paying substitute teachers from their own pockets.
Wow.
That's the United States, richest country in the world. Richest country in the world. And I'm glad we have a teacher here on panel to talk about it. Oh, no, she's busy. Okay. I'm sure Steph would want to talk about this, but she's busy. Okay, so there you go. That's the story. Teachers, again, this is the you want a pony. Oh, you actually want to have books? You guys want to, that sounds like Hillary Clinton, the governor of Oklahoma. You guys want a new car. That's her saying, oh, you want a pony.
Yeah, and the teachers, you know, that they were willing to meet them for the most part on the salary, but they weren't able to meet them on the other stuff, the classrooms and the other workers and so forth. And just like teenagers, I mean, you know how teenagers are. Teenagers are like, I don't want a car unless everyone in the neighborhood gets a car too. That's how teenagers are.
That's how all teenagers are.
Right?
Teenagers go to their parents, hey, it's not fair that other kids don't have what I have. That exactly. You know how kids do that all the time.
You take my keys and I'm not driving this thing.
All right, so as Michael Moore said, I'm sure MSNBC's all over this story in the right way. I bet they are. And you know what I say? I say thank God they're not, because then we get to have a show. But I'd rather be telling jokes. I'd rather be touring and doing comedy. Now we do theaters, but we still do clubs sometimes. We do flappers. I'd still rather be touring doing comedy and talking about this face-to-face with people, because that's what's really fun. I mean, this is fun too, kind of, but it's not really fun. It doesn't even compare, in fact. So, so I would like to see Rachel Maddow, Chris Hayes, and Lawrence O'Donnell cover this correctly. I would like to see them make this the top story every day, because this is what would change America, not Russia. Russia didn't do that. Russia didn't defund the schools in Oklahoma. Russia didn't make teachers have to sell their plasma. Russia didn't make them go to a 4-day school week. You know who did that? The call's coming from inside the house. We're doing that to ourselves. And people who want you to think about Russia like they're a problem in your life are fucking propagandists, and you should stop listening to them. June 30th is our next live show. It's going to be in Portland, Oregon. There's a link for tickets under there. If you can help support the show by becoming a patron, we give you hours of bonus material every week. And please make sure you're subscribed. It only takes a second. You probably think you're subscribed. You're probably not. And then click that bell so they send you a notice when we drop a video. They won't send you a notice unless you click that bell. Plus, we're on Steam It, whatever that is. We're steaming it right now.